Bruh, factoring. Guys, I know factoring can be tough, and if you remember anything about factoring, you probably remember that it's really complicated and there's some difficult things. But factoring in and of itself isn't supposed to be complicated. Factoring just seeks to take a number or an expression and break it into its simpler parts. For example, the number 50. If we made a factor tree of 50, we could just find some factors of 50. A factor is just one number that multiplies to give you another number. For example, 5 and 10 are factors of 10. 5's only factors are 1 in itself, which means that 5 is a prime number. Likewise, the factors of 10 are 5 and 2. Now, what we just said, 5 is a prime number, right? It has no factors other than 1 in itself. And 2 is as well. So, believe it or not, this is actually the prime factorization of 50 right here. It's 5 to the second power times 2. Now, in this unit, the prime factorization isn't something that we're particularly interested in. We're more interested in finding factors of things with variables in it. For example, the expression x squared plus 4x still actually has, I'm actually going to change this to 2x squared plus 4x. This still has factors to it. It might not be as obvious necessarily as 50, but there are things that we can multiply to give us 2x squared plus 4x. In this case, 2x times the quantity x plus 2 would give us. So in other words, the factors of 2x squared plus 4x are 2x and x plus 2. These are factors of this expression. Now, this really only becomes useful in this situation right here, when we have an equation. Normally, when we try to solve an equation like this, we're going to get something where it's impossible to get our x's on the same side and be able to square root and isolate our x. But when we factor it, notice that we can actually solve each of these equations pretty easily. I think it's obvious just thinking about, in this right side, negative 2 is going to make the equation work because negative 2 plus 2 is 0, and 0 times negative 4 is 0, so you get a 0. But at the same time, you get a second answer over here, x is 0. So factoring becomes really useful when we solve quadratic equations. We did a whole unit on solving quadratic equations by factoring, but obviously we need to know how to factor first. So, why do we factor? We want to find things that multiply to give us an expression, and in the end we want to use those factors to solve an equation. That's the basic gist.